Messi. Ronaldo through.
Nice. Ronaldo's so freaking good.